Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our morning get-together live here on Facebook. We have more headlines to share, and we look forward to your questions and comments this morning, as always. As you know, we're here Monday through Saturdays, every morning, except for Sundays, on Facebook, and then we repurpose the broadcast on YouTube later on. So whether you're watching live or you're catching up with us later on in the day, it is always great to know that you are watching and to hear your comments, ideas, and suggestions. Today is Friday, which is a good thing. Where is our Friday music? Here. Yes. Today is Friday, February 24. It's an official Mexican holiday. Today is Flag Day in Mexico. And we'll talk a little bit about the flag, where it came from and how it has evolved through the years. But first, we have news and stories to look at, including some weather-related things, some pot-related things, some music-related things, as we had a wonderful lecture yesterday. I want to tell you a little bit about how that went. But first, as always, if you're watching live for the first time, feel free to let us know by writing the word new in your comment. We'll give you a nice little welcome. Something important on your mind, add a capital letter Q at the beginning so that we can look for it in the comment section later on. Boom, let's go. Well, it's only February, but authorities are announcing that moderate drought is already occurring in the area. According to the latest report from the National Weather Service, 81% of the country is already experiencing some level of drought due to the lack of rain. Now, is this earlier than usual? Maybe, but maybe not, although humidity will start to progressively increase. When it comes to rainfall, we have at least 3.5 months ahead of us of dry season, as the summer rains do not usually begin here in Puerto Vallarta until the second half of June. So it is time to be mindful of our water consumption, of course, and soon enough, it will be time to start thinking about pool time and day passes at the nearest hotel. Either that, or it's time to be extra nice to our friends that live at places with swimming pools in their apartment complexes. And you know who I'm talking about. At least you know who my friends are that I'm talking about. I want to go swimming. Now, I want to report on the sad demise of a formerly awesome restaurant, Quale Paraíso. I don't know how many of you remember having dinner at this fun, iconic restaurant right next to the river under the Paso Ancho Bridge. In fact, the restaurant was there from before the Paso Ancho Bridge was built. But authorities got phone calls 2 mornings ago that a fire had broken in the property, and unfortunately, what was left of the restaurant burned to the ground, affecting nearby electricity lines and even causing the evacuation of nearby schools. This is going to be sad to look at next time we go walking towards Paso Ancho, because you can see it after um, right next to the bridge. So we don't know if anything will be built there again or not. But for those that remember the restaurant, it is sad to see that it's finally gone. And I also want to let you know that Netflix is coming to town, and I don't mean the service we already enjoy and love. Christian Cázares, who oversees the Municipal Tourism Office, has announced that at least 350 people from the company's production team are headed their way to our city to begin filming something in town. Some reports say that Netflix will be here for a while. Other reports say they're just filming something. So, regardless, it's time to pick up something nice from your wardrobe, as auditions for extras and such are likely to be announced at some point. Now, national media is reporting this as a boom to Puerto Vallarta's tourism economy. Local sources, not so much, bringing up the usual and very justified issues of, while it's good for tourism, our city has basic needs like any other city, with so many public areas and services in disrepair. And what are we going to do about that? I guess it is a wait and see situation. And speaking of improvements, Avenida Las Palmas near the bus terminal has finally reopened to vehicular traffic. This is one of the important projects undertaken by the city's current administration, and it is a good one. This is very good news, as it improves access from Avenida Mexico to the highway. And the good thing is that the street was reopened with hydraulic concrete and not cobblestones due to the heavy traffic that circulates through it. And in case you are wondering where this is, let me show you the map for a little bit of context as to how important this route is. So let's see, is my pointer there? Yes, this is the avenue that was just opened. The bus terminal is located right here. And of course, here is the main avenue depicted in yellow. But as you know, oftentimes, if you're trying to get out of the city, there can be a lot of traffic on the main avenue. But so for anyone living in Pitillal or in Versalles or so forth and so on, a lot of times getting out of the city is a lot easier by way of Avenida Mexico, which comes out this way, and taking that left onto the new and improved avenue. So it's just a few blocks, but this is an important improvement. As a matter of fact, when I was coming back from Guadalajara, we were commenting on the fact that there was not an easy way to drive smoothly through that street because there was just so much traffic there. And of course, with the cobblestones, it was complicated to have to navigate. So there you have it. Now let me turn over to the weather just to see what we can expect during the weekend. And here we are. What? Water buffalo nipples. It's sunny, says our snarky weather. I don't quite understand what that means, but what I understand is that it is 25 degrees right now. Humidity is low at 52%, and our temperature in Fahrenheit degrees is 77. Our weather forecast for today says we're going to have a clear day today with a high of 30 and a low of 18. Tomorrow, Saturday, we can expect a partly cloudy day with a high of 30 and a low of 19. And Sunday will be a partly cloudy day as well with a high of 30 and a low of 18. So far, so good. Okay, so yes, I saw some comments go by, and I'm going to address them in a second, but these comments had to do with the fact that yesterday we had a fun and wonderful music appreciation lecture at the Joint Co-working Hotel. About 22 or 23 people were there, and we had a great time listening to all kinds of wonderful Mexican music and its importance in the repertoire. And I was personally very gratified, as this is the first time that I speak publicly about music in over 3 years. And this is for those of you who just know me through Coffee and Headlines. This is something that I did a lot of prior to the pandemic, and I'm just happy to be able to connect with music and with people at the same time. The next lecture has already been established. We took a little bit of a census during at the beginning of the lecture. I wanted to know what people were interested in, and a lot of people mentioned how about some jazz. So our next lecture will take place on March the 9th, and the topic will be how to listen to jazz. We will start announcing this in the next day or two. Now, here's an interesting one that has to do with the smell of weed, or maybe it has to do with the consumption, or maybe it has to do with the illegal distribution of marijuana in our city. But while authorities are getting ready to tighten up restrictions on public places where you can consume tobacco or not, there are locals sending reports to the paper saying that in certain public areas in the La Aurora neighborhood, there's a constant smell of weed being consumed. The modification on the federal law, by the way, from back in 2021 is that you can have up between 5 and 28 grams of marijuana in your possession without getting into trouble. But the law doesn't specify anything about where you can consume it or not. Or maybe the law says you cannot consume it at all. I think that's what it is. And now legislation is advocating for the legalization of marijuana, meaning that you can smoke it publicly without getting into trouble. So I don't quite get whether people are complaining about the apparent inconsistencies in the law, as in they're chastising tobacco smokers but not weed smokers, whether the people are complaining about the illegal aspect of people selling drugs out in the open in the neighborhood, which can be complicated because, I mean, one thing is selling marijuana, but another thing is selling harder drugs. Or if people simply dislike the actual smell of weed permeating the air. You are welcome to share your comments. I don't know what it's like in the United States, for example, because dispensaries and all that stuff were legalized after I left the U.S. So I don't know if in cities where pot is legalized, you can actually be walking down the street and all of a sudden you get a whiff and it's okay with people or not. So I welcome your comments if you care to comment on this one. Next, another local nonprofit increased transparency. I was happy to see that Vallarta Abuelos has published their 2022 annual report on Facebook, indicating that they managed to raise the equivalent of 3,046,000 pesos put to good use in scholarships, school supplies, and other items for children at risk. Vallarta Abuelos, or Vallarta Grandparents, has been providing educational and cultural assistance since 2019, and it is a registered nonprofit in the United States. It is unclear whether it is properly registered in Mexico or not, but it is nice to see the results of their excellent initiatives. And now, before we get into our comments of the day, I want to remind you that today is National Flag Day, and we're going to unpack this. First of all, let me put it on the screen. The Mexican flag is one of 3 official symbols in Mexico, along with the national emblem, which is the circular icon in the middle, and the national anthem. The latest design, the one that you're looking on the screen right now, was adopted in 1968, but we celebrate the flag every year on this day since 1937, as instituted by then President of Mexico, Lázaro Cárdenas. The date was selected over a century before by honoring the 3 guarantee plan proclaimed by Agustín de Iturbide in 1821, where the 3 colors of the flag represent 3 guarantees: the guarantee to practice religion, the guarantee of independence, and the guarantee of unity. Now, we know this flag and we have told the story of the emblem in the middle a number of times, but we haven't ever explored its evolution. So we are going to now take a look at how the Mexican flag has evolved through the ages. The first Mexican flag was actually this coat of arms used by priest Miguel Hidalgo at the beginning of Mexico's independence in 1810 at what is known as El Grito de Dolores, or the Cry of Dolores. This was the original cry that we celebrate on Independence Day in Mexico, when the first insurrectionists cried viva for this, that, and the other. And its importance lies on the fact that this was the first symbol used. Of course, it depicts the Virgin of Guadalupe. After that, once Mexican independence concluded in 1821, the government led by Agustín de Iturbide adopted the three-color design for the first time, those three guarantees that I mentioned before. And some history books consider this to be the first Mexican flag, while others consider it to be the second. Now, notable differences between this design and the current design is the crown on the eagle, which symbolizes an empire, not a country, and the fact that the eagle is not chomping or eating a snake, or at least not yet. The next Mexican flag was the one waved by Maximilian I during the first French intervention in Mexico, and it resembles the French Imperial Empire flag. This one remained the official flag of Mexico until 1867, when Maximilian died. This is the flag that was waved by Porfirio Diaz during his 31 years of presidency from the late 1800s to beginning of the 20th century. And this is the flag made official by Venustiano Carranza when he became president after the Mexican Revolution of 1910. It starts resembling the current Mexican flag, but not just yet. This brings us back to the current flag, which was made official, as I said before, in 1968, while Gustavo Díaz Ordaz was president. It is often said that he was eager to create the modification to coincide with the Olympic Games that took place in Mexico City on that year. And that, my friends, is a quick and dirty look at Mexico's flag as it has evolved through the years, which brings us to a chit-chat section, as always. Let us see what's on your mind. A ver. I see good mornings, which I always love and I always appreciate. Pat, who was present at the lecture yesterday, went home singing El Panadero con el Pan. I love it. Hello, Claude. Yes, indeed, the music teachings were extremely wonderful, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Let's see what else. Rita was there as well. Rita, you had mentioned that the title was too lecture-y, and I certainly hope that the experience was entertaining, even though it was a lecture. And here's our dear friend Eric, who owns the hotel, Joint Co-working Hotel, who was also present with us. Eric, as always, thank you for creating such wonderful opportunities for adult educators like myself. Which reminds me, if anybody is out there looking to teach or to share any kind of information, do reach out to the Joint Co-working Hotel, as it is the only entity in town that is the equivalent of an adult education center. Yes, we have places like Art Vallarta where you can learn a lot about art, but when it comes to general education, from yoga to languages to cooking to music, there is no other place in Puerto Vallarta like the program that is established by the Joint Co-working Hotel. So give it a go if you want to teach something, or if you want to, if you know someone that has something to share. Let's see. Dan really enjoyed it. I finally remember the song that I was trying to think of, Cielito Lindo. Cielito Lindo was not included in yesterday's lecture, but again, as I said yesterday, we were just scratching the surface on some of Mexico's iconic songs. Let's see what else. Pat says, I'm ready for part 2. We are definitely going to come back to Mexican music at some point in the future. Kathy says that after a jazz lecture, she would love a lecture on show tunes and musicals. Okay. If we don't get another interesting request, we will definitely try to get show tunes and musicals after we do our jazz listening introduction lecture in a couple of weeks. Let's see. Do. Let's see. There's a question from Ricky. Hello, Ricky. I hear it pronounced La Comer, but I don't see a tilde over the O in La Comer. Is that an abbreviation? We talked about this at length in our vernacular Spanish lecture. This is one of many words that get abbreviated in Spanish, just out of laziness, seriously. There's no other reason. For example, we don't say la computadora, we say la compu. We don't say el horno de microondas or the microwave oven, we say el micro. We don't say, well, there's several of them. And La Comer is a short of the original name of the store when it was launched in the 1920s. It was called La Comercial Mexicana, or the Mexican Commerce Store. That was the original store. You would go shopping for groceries at La Comercial Mexicana. At some point, Mexicans adopted the shortening of La Comer, which was the official name that the company adopted in the last decade. I remember it was in the 2000s. I don't remember the exact year. Now, it is La Comer with the accent on the first syllable because, for better or worse, or for whatever reason, whenever we shorten words in Spanish, the accent always goes on the first syllable. Comer, compa, polis, compu, ciber. So that's why the accent goes on the first syllable and not on the second one. The word comer with an accent on the syllable, on the second syllable, is an actual word. It means to eat. But even though La Comercial Mexicana does sell food, I chuckle when I hear a lot of English-speaking locals calling the place La Comer, whereas the name of the store and the name of the company is La Comer. Now, why doesn't it have a tilde over the O? That has to do with Mexican grammar rules. We don't put written accents on words that end on the first two syllable words. Words that have the accent on the penultimate syllable don't get accents. See, I'm failing my Spanish grammar at this point. All I can say is that the word doesn't use an actual written accent. But that was my very long and convoluted answer to your cue. I hope that was satisfactory, and that needs one of these. There you go. Let's see. Do-de-do-do-do. Do-de-do-do. The marijuana dispensary in my little suburb is a gold mine, always busy. I am sure it is. But my curiosity, if I may, has to do with whether you see people like walking around Boston nowadays and you can smell the smoke, the smell of weed on the street just because it's legalized. I don't know what the laws are, and I'm just curious about that. Pat comments, there is a dispensary in Palm Springs that has a well-ventilated indoor lounge where you can enjoy your purchase before going on with your day. That sounds lovely. I wonder if we'll have that kind of scenario in Mexico sometime soon. Thank you for this. If this comes from Christy, I am sure this is the case. No smoking weed in public in the United States. If that is the law, then I understand that. So how it will be implemented in Mexico is a mystery to me. Let's see what else. Thank you for your remarks, Spencer. It was great to see you at the lecture yesterday. And I am happy to have brought the name tags for those of you that requested them. There you go. And let's see what else we have. Doody-dooty-doo. Oh, Michael says that he was fortunate enough to hear Sahid's performance of El Pastor yesterday. Local singer and sweet new friend Sahid was in the audience. I invited him because it was his version of El Pastor, a very beautiful and traditional Mexican song that inspired me to offer a lecture on iconic Mexican songs to begin with. So it was great that he was there, and I was very grateful for his inspiration. Pat says, I forgot to turn in my ticket yesterday for the class. No worries. No worries. You have nothing to worry about. We know how many of you were there. We know how many of you paid for the lecture. And as always, I am very grateful for that. Interesting. Suzanne comments, as far as legal marijuana use in the U.S., the smell is very prevalent in many locations. I swear I get a contact high in the parking lot at Walmart. That is so funny. It was a big issue for her, for Suzanne, when it was illegal. Then again, once again, I don't know if it's going to be too much or too little here in Mexico, but there you have it. What else do we have? Rita chimes in for show tunes. Okay, that makes two of you. Thank you very much. Robert from Colorado remarks that he seldom smells weed outdoors. Interesting. Albert says, half the weed smokers seem to hang out at Parque Hidalgo in the evening when I walk home from Whiskey Kitchen. Interesting. Well, there you have it. I don't know that we have a definite stance on this one. I myself consume what I consume in the privacy of my own home, and that's been my case all along. And I'm starting to ramble, which means it's time to end today's broadcast. As always, thank you very much for your company. Thank you very much for your comments. They make my mornings every single day. And for those of you that joined me on the lecture yesterday, thank you for reminding me that that music is universal and it is important. And it is a pleasure to continue creating those connections once again here in Puerto Vallarta. So I hope you have a great weekend. We will come back tomorrow, of course, with more coffee and headlines. So hopefully I will see you then. Take care.